Today I'm going to do some learnings. The other thing really clear is that the hothouse protects from the wind, and that happens also on the outside. These have fruited to some degree, and it's still flowers. This is August 30th, so I could get frost any day, but the weather forecast is good for the next 10 days, so I expect I'm going to get a pretty good second harvest. I've already harvested once, and there's some nice looking beans. I think rattlesnake beans. So it's worked well for the beans. But as I was mentioning, I think having the hothouse inside the trellis or the cattle panel, it's reduced the wind, so protected, and also early on, especially early on in the season, those beans right over there, they were by far the fastest growing and went right to the top, basically, or near the top of the cattle panel. And so that was very good. I think it was a combination of heat, light reflecting off the hothouse, giving them more heat, which the beans love, so they took off, and also protection from the wind, so they also took off. So this was very clear cut versus all the other cattle panels. On this side, my apples are diving down onto the side. This side is sugar snap peas, and the sugar snaps, they've only got up to 4 feet. Even now it's frost time, and my peas have not had a good harvest. I mean, I've got to come in and pick some now. I got some nice looking stuff in there now, but I still have a few flowers, some new flowers, coming out, new flowers. So if I keep watering, these peas will continue to grow and produce, and they could do that for another month. So in the end, it might be just fine, but overall they're a disappointment. They didn't grow tall anywhere, and pretty thin. So I've got to rethink what I'm going to do. But this is the west side, west side, and so what I'm thinking is that if I take the squash, zucchini outside of out of the hothouse, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to plant those in these beds on both sides of the hothouse, so I get protection from the wind, a little more heat from reflection of light off the surface of the hothouse, and hopefully those will do very well. I can tie them up onto the cattle panel and allow them to go to really spread. They got good ventilation and lots of room to grow and spread. So I'm going to try cucumbers, squash, and zucchini, and pumpkins, things like that in these beds. My other cattle panels, my other two, this one has beans on the one side, which has gone, it's gone up to 7 feet. And it was kind of late going, but I've got a good harvest previously, and I got a bunch more that are all set to pick. And there's a lot of flowers, so again, if the frost holds off for 2 weeks, I'll get another flush to harvest, and if it holds off a month, which it could well do, then I'll have tons of beans. On this side, on the west side, to the right here, those were supposed to be sugar snap peas, and they just have done terrible. And on the other side, I've got beans. The beans have done like orders of magnitude better. You can see all the flowers. You know, again, I need another 2 weeks to really maximize this harvest, because those will all turn into nice beans in 2 weeks. On the outside here, I planted beans, pole beans, right in the whole width of the bed, which is not great, and that's one of the reasons why they're delayed, because they had to grow a lot farther to get up onto the thing, onto the trellis. But they're also going up into the tree, which is fine. So, you know, I won't do that again, and because this takes too much effort just to get into bed. Now, one thing you will notice here is that these are growing up right to the top. They're growing up, up, up. Those are about 7-8 feet up in the air. But the top of the, from about 6 feet up of this cattle panel arch has nothing growing on it. And therefore, that has several implications. And it's kind of interesting. I figured the beans would just keep going and go straight up, but they've kind of got a anti-gravity in their DNA, so they want to grow up, not necessarily over and down. So they get to the top and then they just go straight up, and they don't actually go to the top. So one of the things that I'm thinking is that I've got this space, this cattle panel trellis, that I could fill in with a more permanent vine, which I'll get to in a few minutes. But I'm thinking grapes might do that, and that would be fantastic. This is the third cattle panel trellis, and I've got these purple pole beans, and they've already had a good harvest, and you can see they've gone right up to the top and actually extending over. So, you know, these ones have definitely had the best growth and the most success. Again, on this side, sugar snap peas, they've got 4 feet tall, that's it. Have not done well. So I'm rethinking that. One of the things I'm rethinking is that next year I should put the heat-loving beans on the west side of my north-south trending arches, so that they would get the warmer, the hotter afternoon sun, which they love. And I put my sugar snap peas, which are cool weather crops, on the east side, so they grow up and in a predominantly morning cooler sun. So that's one big change I'm going to make in the future. As you can see, another interesting thing is these beans in this system. When I get up to the point where the arch starts to bend over, then the beans, when they fruit, they send out a little fruiting stalk, and the beans just are on that. You can see here, there's the vine, and behind, a little fruiting stalk comes inside. A little fruiting stalk comes inside. So what you end up with is you've got an arch with your fruit hanging right down in your face. So it's perfect for harvesting. Fantastic. This is definitely the way to go. So I'm gonna have to look at my varieties. These purple ones have done the best in terms of harvest and fruit. The Scarlet Runners, they grew very fast, but not as many fruit. And the yellow ones are a little delayed. You can see here, I've only got a few yellows out of here. There's some coming. There's one that's looking good, but the purples have done very well. And this is my second harvest, so I got to harvest these shortly and end up with something very good. The other thing was, my intention was to have the arch covered with beans and sugar snap peas, which is going to provide a lot of shade underneath. So I could plant spinach, you know, Swiss chard, lettuce, etc. that don't like the hot sun, and they would do well. Now, unfortunately, I have an ongoing problem growing beets. I think the birds were eating the tender leaves. That was one of the issues. But you know, it's just an ongoing thing. I've got to really look at that. You know, about the beginning of July, I cleared out some spinach, which did very well. Like in the early season, up until about July, these side things are so small, there's no shade in the middle. So I can get an early crop and then harvest it and then put something else inside. So I can do multi-crops inside if I want. And that's probably a good strategy. I got to focus on it a little more. I may have to net these beets and these tender greens early because keep the birds off. And the other thing I noticed is that my arches are north-south trending. And so I've got a west side and the east side. And because of that orientation, the inside gets a lot of sun because it just comes, the sun's, you know, to the south a bit. And as it goes through its daily motions, I get a lot of sun inside. So maybe, you know, if you need something, you need a definitely a shady area, better to orient these maybe east-west, and then definitely on the northern side it'll be full shade or almost full shade. Look at that bird in there. Oh, beautiful. In the plums. To help facilitate the growth on the cattle panel arches, I've got to reimagine my pruning strategy for these fruit trees. It's a plum and then there's 3 apples. So, you know, pretty much I'm doing a small vase. What I'm going to do is I'm going to trim it at the top a bit. I'm going to trim these back a bit and keep it open in the center and allow it to keep growing out to the south. So it's not inhibiting growth on a cattle panel. Speaking of trimming, this is my apple. Now this is an upright inverted umbrella sort of thing, pretty open, but it's too tall and branches are overhanging the cattle panel. So what I'm going to do, this one on this side, this one's shorter, and I've already got this form going where the branches are dipping down to the outside. So I'm gonna, that's the Paul Gauci method, keep it very open, allow the tree to grow to a certain height, and then prune it so that the branches fold back, curve back to the outside and downwards, so you easier access to fruit, and also of course more light's available to get into stuff adjacent to it. Again with pruning, this is the easternmost apple. You know, I'm gonna have to trim this west side next to the hothouse down significantly and try to drive the thing to bend over and come down. On the east side, I got some branches that are really extended, and they're overlapping this asparagus bed, and I definitely have to trim those back. So again, I want to allow them to come towards me, towards the south, and then start bending down like that branch right there, and get the fruit lower down and allow more sunlight in the upper levels, which of course that's where the sun is.